everyone. So today we're going to kind of start talking about genres. Now, we talked a little bit yesterday about nonfiction and fiction. Remember, nonfiction has real information, and fiction books have made up stories and information in them. Okay, so think of your favorite movie. Is it funny? Is it scary? Is it historical? Is it realistic? Could it happen in real life? All of those things I just listed are genres. Okay, so kind of like the topic under which the movie falls. Now, books are the same way. Okay, there can be funny books and historical books and informational books, nonfiction books. Okay, so I put on here a little meme and it says genres everywhere. I know it seems like a big word or like a fancy French word, okay, but genres are actually more common than you would think. So, just a reminder, we talked about fiction and nonfiction. Fiction is not real, pretend, there's made up characters, and it entertains us. Okay, so the nonfiction we have, it is real. It gives us real information. There's lists, charts, and diagrams, and it's written to inform us. Okay, so like The Cat in the Hat would be fiction, Captain Underpants would be fiction, same with Diary of a Wimpy Kid and the Bad Guys series. Nonfiction books would be a book about volcanoes, a book about life on Mars, a book about a person who lived, Anne Frank, or even about like the life cycle of a pumpkin or some sort of plant. So, under each of the fiction and nonfiction categories, there are other things that we need to learn about. Okay, so we're thinking fiction, so we're thinking made up. Okay, so there's a genre called fantasy. Now, you guys are probably pretty familiar with fantasy, okay, but fantasy has one or more features that make them fantastic. Okay, so I'm sure you guys have seen or heard of Harry Potter or any of those kind of magical and fantastic movies. Okay, those would be fantasy movies. They have imaginary worlds. Okay, so a fantasy book would have a made up world. Maybe the main character is reading and she can dive into the book that she's reading, and there's a whole new world around her. There are fantastic creatures, so maybe three-headed dogs or talking ogres, okay? And then there's also extraordinary people or animals who have the ability to do extraordinary things, okay? Nursery rhymes and fairy tales, so like Humpty Dumpty or the Three Blind Mice or let's see, I'm trying to think of a good fairy tale, maybe like Cinderella. Okay, those would all fall under that fantasy category. Now, let me show you a few examples of fantasy. So like I said earlier, that the Harry Potter series would be definitely fantasy. There's a Wings of Fire series that's really popular among fourth graders. Okay, that would be fantasy. Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, I know you guys, I'm sure, have seen the movie. Okay, but the book would also fall under that fantasy category as well. And then you all know Frozen. Okay, Frozen would be a great example of fantasy because our main character has those extraordinary powers. And I'm sure you guys have seen at least one superhero movie. Hopefully you have seen The Incredibles, but this is Jack Jack. Okay, so his superpowers and all of the superpowers of The Incredibles cause that to be a fantasy. Okay, and then I don't know if any of you people are Hobbit fans or Lord of the Rings fans, but Hobbit would be another good example of a fantasy.